Hello everyone, I'm Jack Watson, full-time UI UX designer, illustrator, animator, donut connoisseur, and it's time for an Illustrator branding challenge. We are working on some icons today. You'll find a whole bunch of great links right below my face in the description of this video to download your file to create along with us today, as well as other resources, other challenges, links to our Creative Cloud communities, including our Illustrator Discord. Moving on to our starter file, you're going to see quite a few very small artboards today with some blue guides visible alongside our resources. These artboards are 96 pixels by 96 pixels. They are a fairly standard, although larger icon size. Icons are generally multiples of 16, so 16 by 16, 32 by 32, 64 by 64, etc. I've got some guides here to help you kind of compose your icons. If you do a search for icon grids, you'll find a lot of different results and a lot of different opinions. Ultimately, this is the grid I like to use, but it's up to you how you want to set up your guides. You can add more guides if you want to, but I find that a lot of guides are really difficult to work with, and they can start to get overwhelming and difficult to kind of like, I don't know what to align to, so this is just kind of like a really good starting point. But if you wanted to create your own guides, you can go down here, and if we make a new artboard, I'm going to grab the artboard tool right over here, and I'm just going to drag to create a new artboard. And then I can go up to the width and height in the transform panel, and I'll just type in what I have, 96 by 96 for each of these. And then I'm going to use shapes to make my guides. I really like using the shape tools, the line tools, the pen tools to create guides. I just find it easier to kind of move things around and get them positioned how I want them to. So I'm going to hold down on the rectangle, and I'm going to grab the ellipse tool. I have smart guides on, which are why you might see these like pink shapes kind of flying around. You can go up to View, Smart Guides to turn them on and off. And I want Smart Guides on in this case because I want to go move my cursor over my artboard until I kind of hit that center mark. So I'm going to drag, and I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt as I do that to drag a circle out from the center of my screen. Alright, so now we've got our circle in there. It looks very similar to our circle in here. And I am going to go up to Object, Transform, and I'm going to use Scale today. And now I want this circle to be about 25% smaller than my other circle. So I'm going to have about 25% space between the outer and the inner circle. So I can actually type in here in the scale window in Uniform 100, and I'm going to subtract 25, so it'll take away 25 from it, and Illustrator, if I hit tab, will actually do the math for me, so I don't even have to think about what I need to do. Once I've got that, you'll see that with the preview you can see our inner circle here. Instead of hitting OK, if you hit OK, it's just going to make that one single object. I'm going to hit copy to make a copy of my circle, so now I've got two of them in there. And you could keep going. You could make a smaller circle. You could do the squares that we've got in here the same way. But for now, I'm just going to drag to select with the selection tool, go up to View, and go down to Guides, and hit Make Guides. And now we've got our guides created out of our circle. You can make them out of any shape, star tool if you want to use a star tool, polygons, whatever you like. So I'm just going to drag to select both of these guides, delete them, go to my artboard tool, and delete our artboard there because we don't actually need it. So I like to work with this grid because it keeps everything kind of consistent. The spacing, like I said, got these lines to make sure I'm keeping the angles the same. Today I think I want to make some weather-themed icons. So I would think of this could be for like a outdoorsy type of brand, a camping brand. It could be for like a weather app if you wanted to do something like that. So I'm going to create a couple of different kind of types of weather. Maybe like some snow or some storms and rain. You could do fantasy weather if you wanted to do what weather would be like on another planet or something like that. I mean, you can pick your own kind of theme. I just find it helpful to kind of start with a theme. That way you don't have to like, if you've got a theme, it's easier to come up with ideas around that idea, around that concept, around your brand, rather than try and like come up with a bunch of random icons. You know, it keeps them kind of a whole set. So Let me know over in the live chat what the weather is like where you are. We do have a live chat over here on Behance at behance.net/Adobe Live every day at 11:30 a.m. Pacific. You can ask questions. You can hang out with everybody in the community. Carol is talking about donuts, my donut artwork. I do love donuts. Okay. So, I'm going to start out with a sun icon here. So I'm going to grab my circle tool again, and if I hover over the center of my artboard, you can see that it's aligned with Smart Guides. You do the same thing, holding down Shift and Alt to drag out a circle shape. I'm going to align with this inner circle here. So I'm going to keep my artwork sort of inside of this circle. And then for the outside circle, we'll do something a little bit different to keep everything kind of like together. So we've got a shape there for our sun. Obviously, we need to add a yellow in here to make it look like a sun. Everybody in our live chat is talking about how hot it is, so I think it's a good thing that I'm starting with the sunny icon. Maybe it's a little bit too sunny. I'm going to hit OK, so we've got our color there. I'm now going to click on my stroke here, and I'm going to double click. I want to change the color of my stroke, bringing up the color picker. Whichever one is in front of the color picker here, whichever option is in front is the one that you're editing. So right now I'm editing the stroke. And I am going to go with, doing a lot of purple, so today I'm going to go with a blue. Like a medium kind of blue for our stroke color. And I think I want to use this stroke color multiple times, so I'm going to open up my panels over here. If your workspace looks different than mine, I am using the Essentials Classic workspace under Window, Workspace, Essentials Classic. Alright, so now I've got my sun in here, I've got my color. I'm going to go over here to my swatches panel, and I'm going to hit the plus over here, and I'm going to add this as a swatch. That's going to let me continue to kind of like reuse it without having to like use the eyedropper tool or figure it out from there. Or just kind of eyeball it, right? Alright, so we've got our sun. I now want to add some rays to my sun. So when you're thinking about icons, one thing to kind of keep in mind is that you're working in like a really small space. So you want to use little indicators to kind of tell the story, what your idea is. You don't want to get too detailed, or it's going to get like difficult to kind of see or a little bit muddy. So I'm going to use the rays here to kind of indicate that this is the sun, right? I'm going to zoom in so I can get a little bit closer and you can see what I'm doing. I don't need a fill color this time, so I'm going to bring the fill to the front, and I'm going to select none. That's going to remove the fill color. I'm going to switch over to the pen tool, and then I'm going to move my cursor over until I see that that pink line for my Smart Guides is kind of highlighting over the center of my circle. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to click a little bit farther up to just make a little line for my sun ray. We could even go up here if we wanted to and make this a little bit, give it a little bit of flair by going to stroke. And I'm going to add a round end cap on this. So now it's got a little bit of personality to it. You can change the round caps in that stroke panel there, right here. I could have it extend beyond, I could have it be shorter, or I could have it be round. Okay, so now we've got a nice sort of little singular ray there. Now there's a really easy way to go about adding these lines all the way around the outside of my sun. I'm going to use the Radial Repeat. So I'm going to go to Object, Repeat, Radial, and you're going to see that it's going to make this little box here with all of these shapes on the inside. And it's a little bit too small right now for what I need, so I'm going to zoom back out using the magnifying glass and holding down Alt. I'm going to switch back to the Selection tool, and I'm going to drag this sort of towards the center. And you can see that there's this little circle at the top here. I'm going to, I'll zoom in so you can see it. I'm going to drag up on this circle, and it's going to expand my shape outward, kind of like explode it outward. I'm just going to drag it all the way up until it reaches the outside of my sun there, and we've got a bunch of circle rays around our circle. Now I can grab this side over here, these arrows that are up and down, and if I drag up, it's going to increase the number of rays around the outside of my sun. If I drag down, it's going to decrease until I have one. So I'm going to increase these up until it feels like it's a lot more full. That looks pretty good to me. And now we've got our sun there, and it looks great. So this is looking nice, but it feels a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit too symmetrical for my taste. I think I want to make this feel a little bit more organic, especially since we're talking about weather here, right? So I'm going to drag to select both of my, my circle and my radial repeat. And with the selection tool active, I'm going to click on the corner of my, my bounding box. And holding down Shift, I'm going to drag, and that's going to scale my sun down. Now, keeping in mind, I want to kind of keep this inside shape here, because I'm going to add something else behind it. I'm just going to keep it kind of like aligned to that inside shape there. And what we're going to add to this here is going to be our background. So we want to add a sky, right? So these are going to be weather icons. We're going to add a background to this, and it's going to be a sky. We could go in here and we could actually use these square boxes as well. You can see if we take a look at the square here, we've got an outside square, that's our artboard. Inside square is our inside, kind of like where we're putting all of our content, right? And they're the same sort of distance. These look like they're 25%, these are 25%, they all line up. But I want to use a circle today, so I'm going to drag from the center, holding down Shift and Alt, and it's going to create a circle that I'm going to extend all the way to the edges of my artboard. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to switch my fill and stroke. So now we've got a blue here, but I want it to be lighter because this is going to be too dark. You're not going to be able to see my line work over top. If I were to go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back, you can see that now all of our rays of our sun are gone, so we need to make it lighter. I'm going to double click on my fill, and I'm just going to drag until I get to a really light blue. And I might even go make it like a little bit purple, right? And I'm going to hit OK. Ooh, we can actually even go double click on our fill, make it a little bit lighter. Okay, there we go. Now we've got a background and our sun stands out over top of it, our nice sky here. It looks like I did not drag it all the way to the edge. There we go. I'm going to zoom out, and so there's a little trick that we can use to put this on all of our artboards without having to copy and paste it 1,000 times. So I'm going to select my background because I know that I want this to be on all of my artboards. It's kind of like a motif or a consistent element that's going to make all of my icons feel like they're a part of the same icon set, right? I'm going to hit Command C, and then, which is copy, and instead of doing Command V or Command F to paste in front or paste in place or anything like that, I hit copy, and I'm going to go to Edit, Paste on all artboards. And just like that, on all of our artboards for our icon set, we've put that blue circle so we can kind of work over top of this and make a icon that's consistent no matter what. Unfortunately, I did copy it onto our first artboard. We can fix that by using the selection tool and just deleting that overlapping circle. Alright, so now we've got sun in the sky, we've got our sky going on. Let's add a little cloud in here to balance out our icon. So we've got it's feeling very weighted to the top left. We're going to add something to the bottom right to make it feel balanced. So I'm going to grab another circle, and I'm just going to drag, holding down Shift to keep it constrained so that it's a perfect circle, essentially. And then I'm going to make another circle right here. I'm just going to drag until it kind of reaches the bottom of my circle. And I can use the Align tools in a second here to make sure that it's perfectly aligned. And then I'll do one more big circle, just like that. I'm going to select all of these circles, and I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to align them to the bottom. So vertical align bottom under align. And it's starting to look like a cloud, but I don't want these weird gaps along the bottom here. So I'm going to switch to the rectangle tool, holding down the shape tool and selecting rectangle. And when I see that I'm aligned to the bottom edge here, when I highlight over this, it kind of turns the shape red. I'm going to click and drag across the bottom so it kind of fills in that shape. Now we can select all of our shapes, and we can go over here to the Pathfinder, and we can hit Pathfinder Unite, and that's going to merge all of our shapes together and make a nice cloud. Now I want to make sure that our cloud is different than our background color, so I'm going to pick white, and then I'm going to click to bring my stroke to the front. And we can very easily add our stroke color just by clicking on that stroke, or that global swatch there, and we've added our stroke to our cloud. Now we'll drag this up and we'll place it inside. Remember, this inside guide is where all of our content is going to go for our icon. And then we can scale it up so that it fills kind of this bottom corner here. And it feels very balanced, right? The cloud over here is kind of balancing the weight of our sun in the top corner. You can kind of scale everything up a little bit more. Okay. And now, I mentioned earlier how we could add a little bit of personality to this, even though we're working with simple shapes, by adding a facial expression. We could add facial expressions to give these a little bit of character, a little bit of personality, even though they're small, right? So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to grab my rectangle tool again, and I'm just going to drag out a rectangle like so. I'm going to switch to fill and stroke. I'm going to zoom in so it's easier to see. Select the selection tool. I'm going to use live corners, these circles in the corners, drag them in to round out that shape. I'm then going to go into here, our shape tools again, and drop down to the polygon tool. When I drag out a polygon, you're going to see it makes this, I think this is not an octagon, a hexagon. You can increase and decrease the number of points on our polygons here by going up with the up arrows and down with the down arrows. I'm going to drop all the way down until we get a triangle. And now I'm doing all this while holding down the mouse. I'm going to hold down Shift to draw out a constrained sort of triangle here so it's not weird at a weird angle. I'm just going to release. I'm going to go over here to my selection tool, and hovering over until I see that rotate option, I'm going to click, holding down Shift, and rotate it 90 degrees. Then I'm going to move it over to my sort of rounded rectangle here. And I'm just going to select both of these by holding down Shift and selecting the rounded rectangle. And then I'm going to go and use Pathfinder minus front. And now we've added like a little bit of a shine or a little bit of a highlight, a little bit of character to our eye, right? Just grabbing the corner there and scaling it down, holding Shift. I'm going to hit Command C to copy, Command V to paste in front, and then I'm just going to slide this eye over. So now we've got two eyes for our smiling face on our sun. I'm going to go back over to my shape tool and switch to the ellipse tool. And now I can just draw out an ellipse, holding down Shift and Alt if I want to drag it out from the center. And I could make a smile here by switching the fill and stroke, so that's a stroke. I could just click with the direct selection tool, this top point, and delete. Now I've got a smiling face, right? But it feels very aggressive. This is a very aggressive smiley face, and we want it to be more of a chill smile face, right? It's a little bit too much. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to click on the shape tool, and I'm going to grab a rectangle. I'm going to drag out a rectangle right over top of my smile, and I'm going to drag it down so it's below the halfway point on my circle, so that I'm just I just want this area right here to be my smile. So I've got the rectangle selected. I'm going to hold down Shift to select my circle, and then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to use that Pathfinder minus front again. So I've got this sort of smiling face here. Now I don't want the top line, so I'm going to go back to my pen tool. I'm going to click on that line when I hover my cursor over, and it sees, you get like that little plus sign on the cursor. I'm going to click, so I add a point, and then I'm just going to delete that point. So now we've got a smiling face that feels a lot less aggressive. We can bring it up to our kind of eyes here. We can scale it down a little bit. We can scale it up a little bit. Remember that scale is going to impact the personality of our icon, right? So we can add this cute little sort of small smile right here and bring it up, and that feels very cute, right? The play on scale gives it a little bit of personality. Now I've got my smile. I'm going to select my eye by holding down Shift. I can select my other eye by holding down Shift, and I can hit Command G to group everything. And once I do that, I can move my face around to kind of change how it feels on my icon. If I bring it all the way up, it kind of looks like my sun. If I zoom out, is kind of looking up. Gives it kind of a positive feel, right? It's very cute. Okay, so our icon is looking great, but there's one thing we need to do before we kind of move on and create more. We need to do a gut check to see how this is looking. We want to make sure that our icon's reading clearly. So I'm going to zoom out to 100%, and I'm going to go, and I want, the guides are making it a little difficult for me to tell what's happening. They're helpful, but this is kind of at the point where I don't want to see them. So I'm going to go up to View, and I'm going to go to Guides, and I'm going to hide my guides. And now we can just kind of get a preview of how this is going to look. And I think it's reading pretty clearly to me right now. It's very simple. You want to be able to look at it and say, is this clear? Is this recognizable? Do I know this is a sun? Do I understand it right away? Especially when you get to smaller sizes. We zoom out and we want to make sure that like this still reads as a sun, because if I make a box here and I make it sort of 16 by 16 for the icon size, so I'm just going to drag out a box here. I'll make it have a white outline. I'm going to go over to transform and I'm going to type in 16 by 16, and you can see how small that is. So it's really important that you do this little check here with the guides off, so you can make sure that your icon is like still really clear. So that's just kind of a handy tip there. I'm just going to delete that box. I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to go to Guides, and I'm going to show them again so we can kind of move on to our next one. So I'm going to make another icon here, and I'm going to save myself some time by making this one be a rain cloud. You could do winter storm, you could do wind blowing, you could do a rainbow. I'm going to click on this cloud. I'm going to hit Command C, and I'm going to hit Command V, and it's going to make a copy. Now I'm going to place my cloud. This time the cloud is going to be the focus, so the cloud's going to be in the upper left. Just going to make it a little bit bigger. And it's a storm cloud, so we need to click on our fill, and we need to change this fill color, double-clicking, to make it more stormy, right? We're going to bring it down to a gray. There we go. I'm going to hit Command C and Command V to make another cloud. Bring it over, aligning always to the inside of my shapes there, so that like no matter what, this has equal spacing from the outside to the inside of my artwork. Now we can add a couple of rain streaks of rain dots kind of coming down. So I'm going to get rid of my fill. I'm going to grab the pen tool. I'm going to hover over to where kind of the edge of my cloud is, and I'm going to click, and dragging at an angle, I'm going to drag down to my guide. So now we have a line, but the line isn't really, rain doesn't come down in a line, right? So I'm going to go over to stroke, and I'm going to change this to a dashed line. I'm going to make it something small, like maybe 3. And then I'm going to increase the gap, maybe to something like 10 is way too much. We'll do maybe 4. We'll do 4 for the gap. So we've got a dash of 3 and a gap of 4 over here in my dash line settings. And now I want to make copies of all of this, and you could use a blend, you could copy and paste and line them up manually, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Object, Transform, Move. And with this tool, I can set this to 0. I can type in in the horizontal box here, I want to type in the amount I want to move my line over. So I can just use the arrow keys, or I could type something in here, a number. But I'm just going to increase it. Oh, and you know what? This is a good point. I have not selected the full line, so I'm going to cancel that. I must have had just the anchor point selected. I'm going to choose the selection tool and click on that to make sure I've got both. I'm going to go to Object, Transform, and I'm going to go to Move. Now we can get rid of that. And now we can move our line. So we'll just move it like 4. And instead of hitting OK, if I just hit OK, it's going to just move my line. But I want to hit copy. So that's going to make a copy of my line. And then this is a really cool thing that you can do. You can actually copy that whole transform, so the moving and the copying of it, by hitting Command D. And I can do that, Command D, several times. So I can just keep moving at the same distance all the way across my shape here until I reach the end of my rain cloud. I'm going to actually delete that one because it goes too far. So now we've got a whole bunch of rain kind of falling down out of our rain cloud. The last thing I'm going to show you is adding a thunderbolt. So we are going to click up here. I'm going to draw at a similar angle with the pen tool. I'm going to hold down Shift to draw a straight line out, and then I'm going to draw at the same angle. I'm going to turn off my dash line. I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to select my yellow, switch my fill and stroke, remove my fill, and then in the stroke panel, I'm going to use a stroke profile that's tapered, and I'm going to increase the weight. So now we've got a really cool thunderbolt happening. I can go to Object, Transform, Object, Path, outline stroke, I can select that so that I've got the same fill and stroke as my sun. And in this case, you can see I've got all of these weird inside points. That's because of how the line was kind of created. I can fix that by going to Pathfinder. If you don't see Pathfinder, it's under Window, Pathfinder, and I can hit Unite just there. And it removes all those weird shapes, right? And then in my layers panel, I'm going to drag it out so you can see. I'm going to pull this down. We can go down here and we can move this below our shape there. When you're ready to export, if you go to File, Export, Export for Screens, you can see it'll export all of your icons individually. You can then hop on over to our Discord. The link is below in the description. This is our Discord under the feedback channel. You can see all of the cool work everybody's been posting. Katarina did this really cool one with the perspective grid tool yesterday. You can just drag your icons right into that window and upload them to the challenge channel to get feedback on your designs. So, thank you all so much for joining me today for a branding challenge in Illustrator. We've created icons using shape tools, the pen tool, the Pathfinder, lots of tools. We are live every day at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time at behance.net/Adobe Live. So stay here at Behance for more live content. Bye everyone!